Hello, Culture Matters podcast. We're back again with another culture content. Before I introduce the topic, here's a quote just for this episode. Management is doing things right. Leadership is doing the right things. Peter Drucker, doing the right things. Topic is interesting. I think interestingly overlooked. How to recognize and solve silent conflicts in the workplace. Recognize silent conflicts in the workplace. That's why I picked this quote, right? Management is doing things right. Leadership is doing the right things. Doing the right things. Knowing where to look. Management doing things right. Task oriented leadership, people oriented. Management task oriented, objective oriented, measurement oriented leadership. Um, doing the right things. This is people oriented. Who, right? And why, uh, and the who and the why, and is are they aligned? Do we know why? Are we doing the right things? It's you don't want to do the wrong things right. You want to do the right things right. You don't want to do the right things wrong either. And you could do the right things wrong if you're not paying attention. This topic is not paying attention. And if you're not paying attention, how do you recognize and solve silent conflicts in the workplace? Conflicts are silent until they're not, until they're loud. You know, when is it better to put the fire out? When you see smoke or you're in the flames? Well, I hope you be in the little embers, not flames, because by the time you see the smoke, you're probably going to be in the flames and it's too late. That's how business works. Nothing happens, then everything all at once. People wonder how they end up growing their way out of business. You know how many times I've seen it's so natural for people to grow their way out of business, to actually grow their way out of business. Why? Well, because the growth has been exponential since last year, the year before, the year before that. But the expenses have ballooned beyond the growth. The expenses have ballooned beyond the growth. The margins are significantly less. Oh, we didn't get a return on that investment. We lost money on that investment. That increases our risk. That dilutes our capital. The less capital we have, the higher our risk. We have less liquidity. Therefore, we still have fixed costs, then we have variable costs. If we don't have enough capital to weather things that are out of our control, that are out of our ability to respond um, at the speed we could. There's limits to our speed. There's limits to our response. Market cycles do exist. The macro does exist. It is real. The micro relates to the macro and can have a huge impact in the macro, but they relate to one another, right? The individual relates to the world. The natural world is constantly at odds with ourself, with like on an individual basis. There's this whole big world out there, and we have to strive to be successful. And there's so much that we don't know, and there's so much that can happen that we can't comprehend. And we have to arm ourselves every day by doing the best we can to learn and grow and sacrifice and be engaged and keep like the leader recognizes and solves silent conflicts in the workplace. But how? How? How does a leader do that? How does a leader recognize and solve silent conflicts in the workplace? I learned this myth, this very interesting story in, I think it was Rule 4, about it's all over the place actually we've been talking a lot about Peterson's work on the show recently. Um Osiris was a pharaoh who was like this benevolent leader, this munificent leader, this once great patriarch of a culture, and Osiris stopped paying attention. Osiris stopped paying attention. Stopped paying attention. If hamartia means to miss the mark in Greek, Osiris didn't have a goal. Osiris stopped what once was done, what once worked that came before the success. Osiris stopped doing the things that got Osiris to where Osiris got, and got the culture to where it got, the walled garden, the paradise. Osiris stopped paying attention, and what happened was malevolence rose up in his evil brother Seth. His evil brother Seth, who wanted his role, he wanted his job, but he wanted it without doing the work. If you're in a position of authority and influence, you're a leader, and you stop doing the work, someone will rise up to take your place that hasn't done the work. They will cheat, lie, and steal to take your helm. Osiris stopped paying attention. Seth rose up and killed him and scattered his body into pieces, I think 12 pieces, all across the land. And it was Osiris's wife that had relations and bore a son, had relations with this corpse, and bore, this is a real story, and bore a son named Horus, who could see. Horus, who could see. Horus fought Seth and defeated Seth, but lost his eye, lost one of his eyes. And he went to the underworld to save his father, to retrieve his father. What the hell does this mean? Horus is the hero. The hero rises up as a consequence of conflict. The hero rises up as a consequence of conflict. The hero rises up. Osiris was once the hero that created the culture, that protected the land, that was once paying attention, that had a aim, that had a goal, that had a desire, that sacrificed and put in the work, that others rallied around to work together towards that aim, that goal, desire, that created all the success, who stopped paying attention, who opened up the opportunity for evil to rise up and take power, take authority without sacrificing, without being a part of the community, without modeling the values that are necessary for constant reintegration of the group and the benefit of the community. Seth killing Osiris, and Osiris's wife representing imagination, creativity, and chaos and potential, having the bearing offspring with his corpse, representing that there's always a possibility for redemption, potential. You know, the if you go deep enough into the dark, you'll find the light, and the hero rises up. So there's opportunity in the conflict, and so recognizing and solving silent conflicts in the workplace is part of the job of the leader. If management is focused on tasks and things and objectives and outcomes and measurements and understanding what's going on, the leader is, as Dr. McGilchrist would say, I believe, right brain in potential and future and projection, and understanding the nuances of the people, of the why. Like, do people get it? Are they bought in? Who's engaged? Who isn't? And why? And what? Like, a leader that is not paying attention is not a leader. They're not in the process of mediation, in the process of leadership. They're not paying attention. They're not engaged. They're not leading. They're either a tyrant or they're on the pathway to getting killed by Seth. Seth will kill them. Someone interested in the outcome without the work will take their reign. How often does this happen in small business? Coup d'etats happen all the time. Someone has lost the respect of their people, and the people rise up and they try to take the crown. So how to recognize and solve silent conflicts. Here's how so the leader does, that's the point I'm making. The leader does recognize silent conflicts, so they're paying attention, they know what's going on. How to actually recognize it? Be engaged, be intentional, be alert, be curious, be they have to, well, this is the thing. A company can outgrow the competence of its management. A company can outgrow the competence of its management. And a company absolutely does outgrow the competence of its management. That goes back to companies growing their way out of business. I should actually ask, how do companies outgrow grow their way out of business? We have to always be learning. That's where advisors come in, coaches, continued education, reading. It's a there's a 9 to 5 job as the chief executive. It might be 9 to 5, but there's going to be time before work and there's going to be time after work to work on oneself and on the business and through the business. It's it's a tremendous sacrifice that it's implicit in the position of authority. The higher one goes in the hierarchy, the more is expected. It's not just a job. It is a life. It is a commitment. It's a sacrifice. And that's part of the trade-off of being at the top of the hierarchy. It's part of the trade-off. So, how to actually recognize the silent conflicts? One has to be paying attention. Now, to pay attention, that's where continued education comes in. That's where the quality of the advisors, the quality of the investors, the quality of the partners, the quality of the partnerships. That's where you hear terms like emotional intelligence. But like someone that really doesn't want to learn and doesn't want to take responsibility will just project all of this shit on everybody else. That is what will happen. It will just be one giant projection of no one is good enough and nothing is good enough. And that is the pathway to a horrible, noxious, toxic, poisonous culture that doesn't matter. A culture that doesn't matter. Matter isn't manifesting as a consequence of the spirit of the people, because the culture is the spirit of the people manifesting into institutions, into values, codified values, into symbols that represent meaning of what the battles we once fought for and what we stand for today. And these very abstract notions, these concepts come to life through the behaviors, the habits, the rituals of the people. It's not the throwing the pizza parties that make the culture. It's the culture leads to pizza parties naturally being thrown from desired and desiring participants. So, how to recognize the silent conflicts is to pay attention. How to pay attention is to desire, to have a goal, to have an aim, to be and that's where there's values of like discipline and temperance and the Aristotle's virtues that come into play, because the actual personhood it takes to live up to that goal, to live up to that expectation is a high bar, is someone that's sacrificing their current self for the future self and helping the current selves of their people. Share this with a friend that needs some leadership help. Leave us a review in the Culture Matters podcast. Another culture content. We will see you next time.